Welcome in to the Betting the Pitch Presents NFL edition. I'm your host at the real underscore G Warner. I'm joined by at A underscore Schnicker for week 7 pro football. We are going to go through 6 games on this NFL card, Thursday night, Sunday night, also Sunday morning in London, depending on where you're listening to us. Please hit subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner. Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Plus, we got 2 Monday night games, and we will let at A underscore Schnicker pick which game he wants to talk about from the list. Maybe I'll get one in there if we have enough time. We are 7-5 to start the season, 19-11, 63% our last 30. How are you feeling on this beautiful Tuesday evening at A underscore Schnicker?
It was a rough week, but we move on, and it's a long season.
It is a long season, made longer by field goals, missed field goals, made extra points that don't mean much, missed, or they do in the gambling world. I'm curious, before we get into these games, we'll do a quick little soundbite on we started this last week with the Jets firing Robert Saleh. Now
Yeah.
they've acquired Devontae Adams and have moved well, I guess I'll front run this a little bit, have moved from an underdog to a favorite at Pittsburgh. We can get into it more later, but what do you think about this crazy week the Jets have had?
They're going for it, right? Is that
Seems like
that's the narrative? I don't I
like
still think there are a couple here's the thing is now I'm forgetting. Oh, Ray, is it Ray Davis? Is that the running back
for
for
Buffalo.
Buffalo?
Yeah.
Um he's a good player, but what he was able to do to the Jets defense, there's some concerns there. Maybe Hassan Reddick might be the bigger acquisition that probably wouldn't get as many headlines if he were actually to be signed for the Jets,
Well,
playing
they
for the
clearly
Jets.
have the ability to go pay a wide receiver or at least acquire one.
Yeah.
It all might be just the Woody Johnson and heir of Johnson and Johnson. Maybe he knows the shoe is about to drop and he's about to go away for life, so he's trying to win one before he sees the penitentiary walls. We'll
Did you know
start
he was an ambassador to like Great Britain or something?
uh,
I learned
prob-
that.
probably throwing the COVID parties with Boris Johnson would be my expectation.
You may be right.
I mean, Johnson and Johnson did manufacture, besides the talcum powder, they also had a lot of vaccine stuff, but I'm sure we just blew up and hit the most views
All
we've
right,
ever had. And
we've entered a new
bots,
segment of podcasting once you
once
say
the bots
vaccine.
figure out that we're talking vaccines, we're gonna have a lot more comments in our YouTube. If you could leave
Make
a
sure
five-star
you
review and comment on whatever you'd like, whether it's vaccines or winning
no, please
football
don't.
bets, please do
Once
so.
you add that keyword in, it's over for our
Apple
YouTube.
Podcast and Spotify. I'm kind of looking for chaos now at this point. We'll start on Thursday with the Denver Broncos visiting the New Orleans Saints. And as easy as it is for me to say the New Orleans Saints, it's also wild to see the Denver Broncos as a road favorite, especially after being down 20-0 last Sunday, not many days ago, just a couple days ago, as we're getting on this Tuesday night, trying to project some line movement. I'm not sure that I expected it. The Broncos were a favorite at one point, had fallen to an underdog, and now we're back to a favorite. A lot because I imagine this means Derek Carr is not available on a short week after missing Sunday. Um, what do you think about the move? What do you think about the Broncos on Sunday? Because I have some thoughts about their quarterback.
Well, which quarterback? I'll start with the other quarterback. I thought Spencer Rattler showed flashes, played pretty well. I mean, it was such a weird box score to look at where the New Orleans Saints scored what 24, 27 points in the second quarter and then didn't score in any other quarter. Um, this is kind of, we talked about this in the offseason. This was part of my concern with the Saints is there's just not a lot of depth there. Aging pieces. They did add some younger defensive players in the offseason, but like the main core pieces are still pretty old. They get gashed for 51 points against what's turning into a very good Tampa Bay team. Um, Offensive line is just and like just wrecked with injuries. Kamara is probably not healthy. David Carr is going to be out for another week or two. So Spencer Rattler equipped himself pretty well as in his first start. It's just um, all the foundation, other pieces around him that to make a rookie quarterback successful, I don't think they're there. Chris Olave's out this week with a concussion, unless,
Not
they
likely.
skirt the
No,
rules somehow.
no. I mean, you never know, but trying to get as many viewers for a Thursday night football game as possible that they don't really want to have Foster Moreau being the leading receiver for Spencer Rattler.
What are your Bo Nix thoughts?
Well, before we get there, I'll go through the Bucks Saints 17-0 Bucks at the end of the first quarter, 27-24 Saints at halftime, and then 51-27 final. So that is about as wild as it can go. I think there was a Rashid Shaheed punt return touchdown in there,
Yeah.
54 yards.
He was making up for that muffed punt that gave the Falcons a touchdown a couple weeks
Oh,
ago.
thank you for killing my under. I appreciate that. Thank you for the reminder as well. Then some organism named Bub Means caught a 10-yard touchdown pass for
Means.
Spencer Rattler as well. And so, that's one of the weirder things. I was not included on this one. And so I kind of was just watching the score updates on the
Yeah.
Bucks and the Saints. And it was pretty wild to see the updates when they came in. 'Cause I was like, whoa, that was a blowout. Whoa, they have a lead. Whoa, it's a blowout again. Um, I don't know that because the Saints, we thought they were going to be a good defense, and that's what's going to make them good, especially at home when the opponents have to use silent counts. Well, fast forward to this Thursday, and they're at home again. It's a little different, a non-divisional opponent coming in, which is, I think, good news for New Orleans because that stadium could potentially be a little bit more problematic for a team and a quarterback that's not used to it. But Bo Nix is horrible, and I like my main rule, I think, for myself in the NFL is don't bet bad quarterbacks, especially bad quarterbacks when they're worse than the other quarterback. I mean, Justin Herbert's not my favorite, so I kind of let that kind of get me into a position where I felt a little bit more comfortable. And I honestly thought that it'd be a low scoring game, and there's a good chance that the Broncos would cover or would not cover a low scoring game. And we almost got that, but late field goal which made sense from the Broncos trying to come back, but killed an under and then didn't get close enough for the Broncos to cover the spread. I feel like we were all surprised at the NFL draft in Detroit when the Broncos either traded up or just wherever
Yeah, they drafted.
they drafted their quarterback. And part of me was feeling like I was falling into love with some results lately from the Broncos winning a bunch of games. And I don't know if that's how you felt about the result, but 20-0 end of the first half wasn't looking so good. Bo Nix did show some stuff late in the game, but against prevent defenses, I feel like that's not saying as much. And honestly, we still haven't really talked about this game. So totals 37 and the spread is 2.5. We've seen the Thursday night football unders cash train fall off the tracks recently, but to me,
Yeah.
that's a good chance this gets right back on.
Yeah, and this is in no way a exact. This is why the Broncos lost. But you got to look at Pat Surtain, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. He's in the concussion protocol. They lose him on the first, I think the first series of the
Yeah,
game.
he was out early.
Um,
I was like, uh-oh, that's bad.
it's I'm not gonna. It was a bad bet. Like they weren't close to covering the three. Maybe could have had a chance at the back door at the end, but
Could have.
um, the why I liked it so much was that I felt like a fairly predictable Chargers offense um, against the Broncos defense that I think is very, very good with Surtain as the leader. Um, had a shot to keep it close. Um, yeah, this it's just an ugly matchup because you just don't know injury report wise who's going to be where. I think the one consistent thing I can look at is that Alvin Kamara has been decent to really good if you're fantasy wise. That's the best asset for either team. I think at this point that I can say for sure. I feel good about that part of the game. Um,
Which is
we're
a
talking about
volume.
running back.
It's
We're
a
talking about running
volume
back.
thing. That's not an efficiency or a skill thing. That's just because
No,
you give him the ball a million times a game and he runs straight into the line for 2 yards.
they don't have an offensive line right now, um,
Do
which
you
makes me
want to
think that the Broncos
go ahead?
could have a shot. I'm trying to avoid any narrative discussion about Sean Payton returning to New Orleans. So
Ah,
maybe that's all
ah,
I'm going to say.
well, I
That's
mean,
it. That's all we have to say about it.
that is interesting because I don't know. We can get to another uh, pharmaceutical family and whatever he was taking from his lady in the West Virginia practice bubble or something like that. But I guess that's a little bit neither here nor there, and it is a deep cut for anyone that's been following the NFL. He was seeing some woman. That's why they had their off-season like summer practices in West Virginia,
In
New Orleans.
Greenbrier?
Makes no
Uh,
sense. And then apparently was addicted to painkillers, and they were like hiding it, and the team doctor was in cahoots. Anyway, trivia
oh,
question before we move on from this game. Do you want to know or you want to guess the leading receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers at 44 yards in Sunday's game?
mm, well, so I'm assuming it's not like Josh Palmer.
A man named Simi Fehoko. So
Oh, Simi
literally we
Fehoko,
saw
of course.
44 yards being the highest number. I mean, I feel like we still made a good bet, even with Patrick Surtain going down in the second. I guess Patrick Surtain might have gone down himself as well, but just really an ugly box score game. That's what happens when the Chargers are way ahead. Yet somehow it hit the over, and I think that's something that if you're playing under, so you got to be really careful because you get screwed on turnovers, you get screwed on every flag that moves the ball 15 yards. It's honestly like it's a not. You
The
really
best
need
thing about unders is finding a team that's just efficient enough to pick up like two first downs, and then you just play the punt game. It's just field
it's too
position,
hard.
back and
It's
forth,
it's
back and
too
forth.
hard. It's too hard, and everyone goes for it now on fourth down. I think my biggest interest is in that under, which is gross and vomit inducing. But also,
Yeah.
the Broncos a favorite on the road doesn't make any sense to me.
Mhm.
The Saints are bad enough that maybe it does. We'll move to London for another beautiful game to talk about. The New England Patriots are visiting the London Jaguars. Not yet officially moved to London, but might as well, or at least they might leave their head coach there instead of buying him a plane ticket back. The Pats a 5.5 point underdog after Drake May looked horrible until one deep shot at the end of the first half to kill my first half under. 40-yard touchdown on one of the few times that the Houston Texans decided to blitz. And he took advantage of it. Credit him for that. And terrible game besides that, with completely horrible resources around him and a coach that looks like a bumbling idiot. Total is 42 and a half in this one. So for some reason, we have some points that are expected to be scored. I just don't know who's going to score them.
I feel like we're the hidden handicap is talking about how the Jags have the home field advantage. They've been there for 2 weeks. Um, I feel like we've pushed past the trend. Like the trend has become too popular. Jags shouldn't be laying 5.5 points to anybody. Did everyone watch that game? Did everyone watch
They moved to a favorite on Sunday morning against the Bears at their London home.
yeah, but
And
there was heavy, heavy money on the Jags in that game.
correct. They moved from what I can see as a 2 point underdog all the way to a pick 'em favorite, even more so than that. I think I even got like a plus 1.5 or something like that when I played the Bears. And that was a nice start to my NFL Sunday, I gotta say. And I've done pretty well in London. The Pats are that bad though. Like they don't have a working quarterback, a working mind at head coach. They have a bad offensive line. Like the Jags are bad. Yes, I agree, but they're not playing a real football team. And so to me, it feels like maybe 5.5 is too high, but I'm not backing the Patriots against the spread against anybody with anyone else's money, honestly. Um, and I don't know necessarily why we're going to see 42 and a half points. I mean, I've been on the Pats under train so far this season with very limited success. Though it looked deserved at a lot of times. And I got to say, one of those things when playing unders is you want someone that's not going to turn the ball over, which Jacoby Brissett was perfect for that. Drake May still very undecided. Yours truly is about that, and some of the early indicators are not good yet. Jaguars, I bet the Bears plus 1.5 right before kickoff. So the Jaguars moved 3.5 points last week. So maybe we see some more money come in on the Jags. I can't imagine we see much in the Pats, but I London, weird game. Maybe there's enough turnovers, but seeing this total above 40 is also very interesting to me because I feel like the Jags, even if they have given up and don't care with more than half the season left, they can still stop Drake May, who has shown one deep ball in at least two appearances in the National Football League. Do you disagree?
Yeah. Well, I did. I heard that Drake May has more touchdown passes than Jacoby Brissett.
I mean, he
And
probably does. Probably more
no,
rushing,
it's not probably. He does. He
more
does
rushing
do
yards, I would
that.
guess, as
Here,
well.
I too often when we see teams they start talking about the culture issues. They start talking about, we got to forget how bad it is for Jacksonville. So often there isn't actually the response. There's the thought that, oh, they're gonna rebound after this bad loss because there's pride involved and all these other things. In the NFL, it doesn't happen. Like it doesn't happen like that. Like a bad team is a bad team. I don't know who's calling the plays anymore on that Jacksonville offense. Doug Peterson, we've talked about. I felt like he's lost his fastball. He's kind of lost touch with good scheme. I'm forgetting the offensive coordinator's name. Their defense is obsessed with um, playing man coverage and won't adapt to any other type of scheme with players that aren't healthy or are good enough to play man coverage. Um, they're just not adapting. I think the coaches are putting the players in bad positions. There's no way. I agree. I'm not going to be running to the window with a 5.5 on the Patriots, but like, there's no way I'm taking Jacksonville as a 5-point favorite off of what we've seen this year.
I
Nothing about
understand
it.
that.
Scheme wise, talent wise,
I
like
think under
psyche wise.
big interest here as well. As much as I hate what I just said, it's going to be a really fun Thursday night and Sunday night when I'm just going to be literally watching games with my hands over my eyes. If you're watching us on video, and if you are, leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, and hit subscribe if you're on YouTube. Um, Press Taylor is the offensive
There you
coordinator
go.
of
Thank
the
you.
Jacksonville Jaguars. It is his third season, and I have no idea why he would ever have returned this year after their collapse last season, but clearly no heads rolled, and Doug Peterson certainly will soon. We'll move to the Sunday night football game. Those New York Jetropolitans, they're a 1.5-point favorite now to the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road at Heinz Field, or whatever used to be called Heinz Field, and
Yeah, I forget what it's called now.
stupidest newest field coming in, knowing that they got no chance to get any value from their naming rights, but LOL at them. Total is 38 on this one, and I'll tell you where it's moved. So initially, the Jets, I saw them as big as a 1.5-point underdog. Then saw them 3.5, or excuse me, I saw them two. Not true. I saw them 1.5 initially. I saw them as high as two, and now they're 1.5-point favorites on the road at Pittsburgh. Explain it to me. Besides Devontae Adams coming in, who wasn't healthy enough to play last week, allegedly.
I feel like we are seeing a soccer injury there, where someone wants to get shipped away, a transfer injury, and so they're hurt, and then magically they get sent to their new squad and they're healthy again. That's Devontae Adams to me. Um, I
They
mean,
have to
I
learn the
think
new playbook though, because they fired the other idiot, Nathaniel.
I think Aaron Rodgers is in charge of that playbook. He's calling every
Oh,
shot with it,
probably.
and I think he's calling most of it at the line. Um,
I would agree.
I would say I don't think it's going to be that different. Like Nathaniel Hackett, there's no way they looked better offensively Monday night. Um, maybe not though, actually,
For
because
how long? For how
a
like
Hail Mary,
the
a
first
Hail
half?
Mary touchdown at the end of the first half makes that
I
whole
mean,
situation look a lot
Aaron
better.
Rodgers is good at those. They should just throw those 4 times in a row from the 40-yard line and just not even try to kick or do anything else. I mean, Brees Hall had a huge night on Monday, but like that game had a ton of scoring. And honestly, I was like, oh my God, did that somehow go under? But it was such a low total at 41 that I don't think it even came close. It was over in the
Yeah,
first half. But like there was no scoring in the second half whatsoever. Yeah, the
right.
wind was weird, I guess, but go on. So the Jets did look good in the first half. I'll
It
say
looks
that.
good. Nathaniel this is still mostly Nathaniel Hackett's offense. Like you can't just go in there like, okay, we're changing all the scheme. Sure, there's different wrinkles that you could put in. What I think is getting kind of buried here is that Garrett Wilson's connection with Rodgers has improved. And I do think Devontae Adams, with a limited sample of the playbook, can rise the whole receiving core. You know what I mean? Like you have Garrett Wilson, who's now like, okay, I was your number one. Now I'm your number two. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. Garrett Wilson as a number two, that's his sweet spot. That makes you like if you have a 1-2 punch with Garrett Wilson as your number two, you're gonna have one of the better wide receiver cores. They still can't block though, and Rodgers is just getting crushed back there.
I mean,
Tyron
he doesn't
Smith
look like he's going to
is
make it through any of these games. He's like looking like he was wishing he was back immunized, not playing for an entire season because he's taking shots. And guess who he's playing? He's got on the road to
yeah,
whatever not Heinz Field is called and is going to have to deal with JJ Watt and potentially
TJ Watt.
the defensive end coming in too. TJ Watt.
Yeah.
JJ Watt's retired. Yeah, I'm watching him eat apples on a Sunday night or Sunday countdowns of some sort. Just yucking it up with all the guys that I don't think anyone pays attention to. But that's why you should be listening to the Betting the Pitch podcast and checking out our 1 minute reels and 1 minute YouTube shorts on Sundays that give our best bets out and make sure you don't miss those. So the Jets, I mean, there's a lot of back shoulder throws that are going to need to happen to for the Jets to be worth a 1.5 point favorite. I mean, I am not a road favorite player, but somehow got around to the idea that the Bills Mafia would travel well enough to make that a home field at the Meadowlands, which isn't even in New York, for that matter. Um, and I'm happy I did. It was not easy to get there, as you commented afterwards, but it got there somehow and looked really deserved to me. I see no reason for the Jets. If this is an overreaction to Devontae Adams coming in, like I'm already on the Jets under 9.5 wins this season. There's really nothing that's going to keep me from continuing to press forward. And if I'm going to go broke, it's going to be fading the New York Jets as road favorites. And I don't really
It's
even
also
like trust Justin Fields, but I do trust that he can run forward with the football. And
right.
Aaron Rodgers can't do that or isn't willing to do that. And I mean, I don't get it. If this is going to be the way, though, I'm going to be betting against the Jets. What feels like every week for the rest of this.
The matchups though, it's everything works perfectly for what the Steelers want to do. They're going to want to run the ball. They can get pressure, natural pressure, with not a lot of blitz against an offensive line that's not very good, and then they can control the clock. Like Najee, this is a Najee Harris game.
And with all that said, before we get to Monday night, they might have as big of a home field advantage as they had in Las Vegas
Oh my
on Sunday.
gosh.
Moving next to the Monday night early game, 45 minutes before the next one. And you better be ready to watch them both simultaneously because they will spoil the results if you're hoping to watch one later or we're watching both later because it's not going to happen. The Baltimore Ravens, a 3.5 point favorite visiting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Total is 48 on this one. In terms of movement, we've seen this number as high as 4.5 and total at 47. But we're at 3.5 and 48.
What do you think? Let's start with you. Give me your thoughts on this.
Well, I do have a Ravens scarf behind me.
Oh,
If you're watching on video, please hit the 5 star like buttons, subscribes, all those sort of things. And I did that because, well, I found it and I was like, well, I might as well incorporate this into the show, though I haven't done a great job. It's been hiding over my shoulder. They did technically beat my best bet last week because I gave out 6 on Tuesday, but got 7 on game day and took a push there while winning the over. So that was a really nice result all around. Could have gone a little bit better, but I'll take 1-0-1 on any game, really, especially considering how nerve-wracking it was at times.
yeah.
I think the Ravens beat a team they're better than at home, but I don't think that's saying much. I thought the Commanders were really competitive, and the Ravens, I think, had an easier time moving the ball than they've had for a lot of years. And I think they have that with a great running back and a quarterback who finally has like a villain that's lining up behind him instead of just 4 random scrubs that rotate that look really good because their stats are good. Though maybe they're a little bit better than that based on J.K. Dobbins' performance for the Chargers so far. Um, but then they are going to Tampa, which is going to be tough on Monday night. No matter what, road game's tough. Monday night prime time is going to be tough. But I don't think that this man named Lamar Jackson has lost to more than one NFC team in his career because he's only lost one game to the NFC in his career. And the Bucks are a good team, I think, but I think there's a big difference in class here. I'm not really into road favorites, as I think anyone who listens to this podcast or any podcast that I've ever recorded over the years and years and I've been doing this. I think my biggest interest here is over 48 because I think there's a good chance we see a lot of scoring.
I would agree with that. Um, yeah, it's been awesome to watch the Ravens offense adapt and morph. Kind of like what I feel like all last season we were like, well, yeah, it's coming, it's coming. This offense is going to be dynamic. It's going to you're not going to be able to slow it down. Run game, pass game. I feel like finally they're there. And yes, you're right. Derrick Henry makes a huge difference in that like aspect of it. Um, Defense is not as good. I agree with you on the over. I think consensus. I think most conversations, previews, breakdowns this week are going to be talking about the over. It's about the price. Um, I'm curious. Like Tampa has been hit hard with these hurricanes the last couple of weeks. Since like um, I'm trying to figure out like, is there something to Tampa? They've been on the road. They've had like, taken their families with them, traveling all over, avoiding practice, and they finally get home, and then it's like, are there actually more distractions? You know what I mean? When you get home and you're facing like actual real life situations of hurricanes and getting around there. That's just something to speculate with. Again, I like to talk about some of those things that you can't really factor in numbers wise, but they're important to talk about. Um, yeah, I think again this is setting up pretty well for another Baltimore bet. And I was with you with Washington last week, and although I didn't take the over, I guess you should have told me you were doing that one too.
I did. I did.
You did?
I did, though I did send a list of a million things that I was
Sunday mornings are chaos. We need to have these conversations another day.
well, soccer's coming back this weekend in full, so I don't know when I'm going to sleep, but or when I'm going to be able to do everything. But it was a good one. I think 48 feels like a really small total to me. We saw
Yeah.
52, I think, which is about as high as you can get. Baltimore, Washington this past weekend. Now we're a little bit lower on Monday Night Football. I expect that number to climb. I was expecting 50, and we maybe we get there. I think I saw 48 and a half at the highest so far. I think Hurricane Milton. If we weren't going to do the Sean Payton heading back to New Orleans narrative nation, then I guess we might as well fill in a Hurricane Milton to try to get a few more hits. Though when I searched the hurricane name to make sure I got it right, saw a story about a man tying a dog to a pole
Dog.
down in the
Yeah.
floodwaters. So that is pretty gruesome.
So,
And
but like, let me get the narrative though, to me isn't like, oh, they're playing for the city and like, there's like, I don't mean it like that. I mean like legitimately it may be more stressful to be at home. Like I don't see it as a positive.
well, I imagine the crowd will balance that out a little bit. I don't know that the crowd or the passing hurricane will potentially make the Buccaneers defense that much healthier. And
No.
the answer is, and I think where Ravens overs go to die is that they move the ball a ton and they're running every time the play clock goes to 40 and the clock never stops because they don't throw in completions. That
Yeah.
I think is the biggest issue for overs, but 48 is not very large. And I think the Bucks on the other side are going to be passing a ton. Which it seemed to me that just to go a little bit deeper, Jane Daniels didn't run at all last week. And I think that was a Baltimore strategy based on lane discipline when rushing the quarterback. I'm not the one that came up with that. That was, I think, Trent Green, if I want to say, who was on the broadcast call this weekend. I could be wrong about him. But amazing he's still able to talk considering all the concussions he sustained. I think the Ravens, it's a different game with Baker Mayfield, but he's going to try to throw the ball a ton. So I think that all points in the over direction. Last game we'll talk about before we get to @A_underscore Snickers pick. The Los Angeles Chargers are a 2.5 point favorite on the road at Arizona on Monday night. Total is 44. Pretty similar numbers to what they were at Denver, though the total is a lot higher, maybe because of their miraculous over this past weekend or a lacking defense, I think, of Arizona. But it seems to me Arizona's getting a little bit more respect than Denver, who had won a bunch of games in a row heading into a divisional matchup. So um, I don't know if it makes sense, but the Chargers feel a little cheap here, considering how Arizona has really struggled against anyone not named the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, Cardinals have been great within the division. But I mean, to me, it felt like that was a pretty big letdown spot. I mean, the spot against the Packers on the road there after they pulled off a couple big wins, it kind of felt like a crash back down to reality. Um, I mean, we the Chargers, they're doing it. I don't know how they're doing it. I don't know how they're doing it. I mean, I
I
know how they're
know
doing it,
exactly how they're doing it. Go ahead.
but again, like I understand the personality, I understand like the strategy there, but like how no one's able to stop it is surprising to me, or how no one's able to efficiently like blow them out is
What
surprising to me.
changed? They got rid of underperforming coaches who have plagued the franchise, brought in a guy that's clearly won before,
Yeah,
and he has brought in an offensive coordinator to devise a running game plan that fits his style. I don't know how he made this line so tough, or what wasn't tough before now is tough, with a bunch of has-been Baltimore Ravens running backs that have somehow come a little bit west. It's like all the people escaping New York to go to LA and just restart their career or something like that. Maybe in the mafia days, who knows? But it seemed to work. Maybe coaches do matter in the NFL, at least from bottom of the barrel to what looks like maybe the cream of the crop, if you will, with a Harbaugh or two in this league right now. But it seems like I was going to say, the magic potion is get a lead by running the ball, smash mouth football style, and then do everything you can to run the clock out. And if it's prevent defense in the fourth quarter that makes Bo Nix look somewhat capable at the end, so be it. You're still going to win, and um, especially when you have a big lead. So I think that's the answer: is the Cardinals don't let the Chargers get off to a big lead, but Cardinals, like, besides one performance where the Rams just couldn't get Kyler Murray in the pocket, out of the pocket, tackled, and he was just running around with like a chicken with his head cut off, but making passes down the field with his helmet on. I think the Cardinals to me don't really seem like something I want to mess with until I see anything to give me some belief. A huge comeback at San Francisco when San Francisco has given up multiple leads in the fourth quarter and big ones at that, is I think more of a concern about San Francisco than it's a positive about Arizona. I don't really know. I feel like the Chargers are not something I want to back this year. I want to bet against them, but I don't think this is the team to do it.
I agree. I probably look under again there, under 44.
Under 44. I mean, it
Yeah.
definitely fits the Chargers style. And every game they play, I'm going to like under, especially if they play well. I don't know. We haven't really seen them have to come from behind much this year. I don't think they can do it, but
Yeah.
I think they're an under team. And I mean, I love getting extra points from Arizona because to me, I think under should have hit last week and a much lower number. And I think we could see that again. So you get to pick our sixth game and then we'll get to
Yeah.
our best bets. 'Cause I think that's for the last
I was
time.
gonna say, let's see if we can squeeze. Let's just do one quick takeaway, maybe get two games in since there's some other pretty good games. And if you're cool with that, yeah.
We got 6.5 minutes.
Yeah, I see. I know. I'll pick one game. You give a quick take on it. Then you pick one game. I'll give a quick
Go,
take. All right.
go.
Lions at Vikings. This is yours.
Detroit Lions, a 1 point underdog now at Minnesota. Total is 50. This is a great matchup. And I gotta say, I was making lines for next week's games, and Detroit is going to be a gigantic favorite in a lot of games going down the stretch. I am surprised to see Detroit as the underdog here. I expect they will close a favorite, but I don't know for sure that'll happen. And the Vikings off a bye. There's a lot of concerns for me with Sam Darnold.
Okay, what's your game?
Okay, you don't want to
Go
rebut.
ahead.
Okay,
We're doing this bet.
not enough
We're
time to
doing it.
rebut. Not enough time to rebut. Okay. My biggest interest here, the Seahawks visiting the Falcons.
Seahawks visiting the Falcons. Seahawks defense has crashed back down to earth. We can now firmly say we know what that defense is. To be fair, though, there were some injuries on the defensive line. Our boy Byron Murphy's missed the last two games.
Oh,
Um, what? What are you gonna say?
yeah, I don't think we have enough time, but there's too much. I don't think we can get further through this. But the Falcons are a 3 point favorite, total 51.5 right now. I love this game. We can try to do this rapid fire next time with a little bit more prep and idea that it's coming. So stay tuned for next week. Last one I'll try to fit in. Houston, Texas, 3 point underdog at Green Bay.
Oh, okay. Texans offense. We didn't learn anything last week.
Nope.
It's still the same, but the offense that fell apart in the second half against the Buffalo Bills. Um, really put a comfortable rocking chair win into jeopardy against the Buffalo Bills. I think this is a reality check for the Texans this week.
One more. Philadelphia Eagles, a 3-point favorite at the New York Giants.
We're not talking enough about Nick Sirianni still having a job. And also the fact that Jason Kelsey apparently he was the reason that they were able to like call out blitzes. Like he did everything for Jalen Hurts. So there's
So
so
that
much.
running back that's playing quarterback is still a running back playing quarterback. Okay, it's now time to get into our best bets. We had an 0-2 last week, unfortunately, which drops our season record down to 7-5. Though we were 70%. That certainly is making everyone else money, including ourselves. We were 19-11, our last 30 best bets for a 63%. Not too shabby. At A_Snicker, where do you want to go for your week 7 NFL best bet?
We're gonna go right back to Lambeau Field. We take the Green Bay Packers -3. Right now, you're getting +100. So I think you could probably hold out and see if we can get a 2.5.
2.5 because you think money's coming in on the Texans. Is that your answer here?
Yeah, yeah.
What makes you so interested? Because you think that rocking chair game is just not possible for the Texans. I guess we have a little bit more time than I thought. We don't need to rush that much.
Okay, okay.
You can give a little bit
Well, I
more.
think like we didn't again, we did not see any of the offensive issues that we saw because it's the Patriots. Um, Nothing about that game. I mean, to be real, like I was like, I wish the Texans were facing a real team last week because I would have been fading them then. Um, I think Nico Collins is a huge piece to that offense. He is CJ Stroud's security blanket. I have not been as impressed with CJ Stroud this year as maybe as the media or the hype has been around the Texans. Um, and I think the Packers, they had that really big comeback and fell short against the Vikings. Jordan Love obviously injured. Um, so you have that little blip. I don't know. I don't think all of that's been factored into Jordan Love and I guess, his development. I think we're still seeing some remnants of injured Jordan Love, and I think we're at the point where he's probably fully healthy.
I like it. All right, now it's time to get into this.
All right, let's do it.
Hey, this is real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet or the best bets coming from at A_Snicker and myself for our NFL edition of Betting the Pitch. We went 0-2 last week, but we're 7-5 this year. We're 19-11, won 63% of our last 30 best bets on this show. Had a great playoff run last year, great start to this season. We'll continue doing that, podcasting every Tuesday night when applicable. And you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. A_Snicker just gave you the Green Bay Packers a 3-point favorite, though advocating waiting a little bit to see if a 2.5 will eventually pop up or even something less on game day. For my best bet at the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube, I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts, a 3-point favorite at home to the Miami Dolphins. No belief in Miami, even if Tua is back for this game, which I don't think is happening. Maybe Joe Flacco's not playing, but I'm still giving out the Colts -3. Grab the Green Bay Packers -3, and that's it. Do it for this episode of this Betting the Pitch podcast. Ran out of time on the minute video, so we'll see how that gets edited. Andrew Schwarzenegger, thank you for joining us. You can find him on Twitter at the real_G Warners, where you can find me on all social media platforms. Awful name, but I stuck with it. It is a beautiful Tuesday night to all of you, and enjoy Thursday night football. Gross. Sunday day in London, Sunday night in London. Awful. And then hopefully we get some better games coming up later in the week with a 2-0 to continue our streak in the right direction. At Andrew Sticker, have a good evening. We'll talk to you all very soon.